First of all, I was born in Telluride, and my early years were there. My grandmother immigrated from Austria in 1920, and they came from the Tyrolean Alps. And if you're familiar there at all, each individual household has a spring that runs through what you might call a spring box. So my grandmother had a home in Ophir, and they had a spring coming out of the Ophir needle into a spring box, and that's where her refrigerator was, and kept all their milk and stuff cold. But as we grew up in Telluride, there were two things. The main stream through town was so polluted that the fish were had genetic deformities, if there were any in there, from the cyanide and heavy metals from the tailings pond where the creek went by. So each spring, we had normal winters. We had deep snows starting mid-October to even into, we hoped the high lakes were thawed out by the middle of July or the 4th of July. Often they were not. That, of course, has changed, but my grandmother did not. They moved to Telluride, and Coronet Creek was the source of water for the town. And each spring with the runoff, the water would become muddy. So we would leave, Grandma required to get somebody, we would always go to Ophir to the spring, and she would collect the spring water there to get through until the water cleared up at home. So that was, that was an important memory for me. I remember that a lot. The other memory is there were still glaciers, mini glaciers on many of the peaks that are all gone now. So in my early teenage, climbing mountains and stuff, we had glaciers, especially in the Wilson Peak area, and those are all gone now. We did a lot of survival off the forests, and we harvested hundreds of pounds of mushrooms and processed them for the winter for the whole family. That's all gone. The water is all fouled up. 2 years now, we've had no mushrooms at all. And 2 years ago, 3 years ago, going into the trees, they had changed where they grew. They didn't grow at the same time. They're popping up with the conditions that support each individual mushroom, if they come at all. This year is even worse. The Forest Service has allowed cattle across the entire western slope. There is no undercover in the trees, in the spruce trees now. The early memories were, the big trees and lots of moisture and snow that we would dig tunnels through to get from one side of the street to the other from the plowing in the center. That just doesn't happen. I look around and I look at water and I look at what's going to be required for priorities. Is it a golf course, or is it domestic water to keep your vegetation alive within your city that doesn't cost a fortune?